In the new TDS 1.26 version update, a few towers have also received rebalance changes as well. The towers that have received rebalance changes in this update are Demoman, Hunter, Sniper, Paintballer, and Ace Pilot. In the end, I will also give a conclusion if the tower is nerfed or buffed. Moving to the first tower, Demoman. At level 0, the cost is increased from 400 to 575. Explosion range is increased from 2.75 to 3.5. Damage is increased from 4 to 6 damage, and the fire rate is decreased from 2.75 seconds to 2.6 seconds. At level 1, the cost is increased from 50 to 150. Explosion range still remains the same as 3.5. Damage also remains the same as 6 damage. The range is increased from 10 to 11, and the fire rate is decreased from 2.5 seconds to 2.25 seconds. At level 2, the cost is increased from 450 to 475. Explosion range is increased from 3.25 to 4. Damage is increased from 8 to 10 damage, and the range still remains the same as 11. Fire rate also remains the same as 2.25 seconds. At level 3, the cost is increased from 1500 to 1650. Explosion range still remains the same as 4. Damage is also increased from 12 to 18 damage. The range is increased from 12 to 14, and the fire rate is increased from 1.5 seconds to 1.75 seconds. At level 4, the cost is increased from 6000 to 6250. Explosion range is increased from 4 to 4.5. Damage is heavily increased from 28 to 50 damage, and the range is increased from 14 to 15. And lastly, the fire rate is increased from 1.2 seconds to 1.5 seconds. Unfortunately, hidden detection at this level is completely removed. Overall, Demoman has been buffed a lot in terms of damage, explosion radius, and also fire rate in early levels. Unfortunately, the hidden detection is completely removed, and all of the upgrades has been made a bit more expensive. But that doesn't stop Demoman from being a great early defense tower now, and also a great crowd control tower. It is safe to say Demoman is buff. Moving on to Hunter. At level 0, the cost is increased from 500 to 750. Damage is increased from 4 to 8 damage. Range is also increased from 17 to 18, and fire rate is decreased from 2.5 seconds to 2.25 seconds. Hunter now also has a placement tower limit of 12. At level 1, damage also remains the same as 8 damage, and the range also remains as 18. Fire rate is decreased from 1.8 seconds to 1.75 seconds. At level 2, the damage is increased from 8 to 14 damage, and the range is increased from 20 to 22. Fire rate remains the same as 1.75 seconds. At level 3, the cost is increased from 1900 to 3250. Damage is heavily increased from 16 to 36 damage, and the range is increased from 22 to 25. At level 4, the cost is increased from 5200 to 9400. Damage is heavily increased from 32 to 120 damage, and the range is also increased from 26 to 28. Fire rate is increased from 1.4 seconds to 2 seconds. Overall, Hunter is heavily buffed in terms of damage and also range. The only downs is the upgrade cost at level 4 has been made almost 2 times more expensive than it was before. But going from 32 damage to 120 damage is such a big difference, and of course, the 12 tower placement limit is needed for this change. It is safe to say Hunter is buff. Moving on to Sniper. At level 0, the range is increased from 26 to 27.5, and fire rate is decreased from 4.5 seconds to 4 seconds. At level 1, the cost is increased from 150 to 200, and the range still remains as 27.5. Fire rate is decreased from 4 seconds to 3.5 seconds. At level 2, the cost is increased from 500 to 750. Damage is increased from 12 to 14 damage. The range is heavily increased from 26 to 32.5. Fire rate remains the same as 3.5 seconds. At level 3, the cost is decreased from 1500 to 1425. Damage is increased from 20 to 30 and the range is increased from 28 to 37.5. Fire rate is decreased from 3.6 seconds to 3.5 seconds. At level 4, the cost is decreased from 4500 to 4000 only. Damage is also increased from 35 to 40 damage and the range is increased from 34 to 45 and fire rate is decreased from 2.5 seconds to only 2 seconds. Overall, Sniper has been heavily buffed in terms of range, especially at the max level. Now Sniper max level can entirely cover the whole map without any DJ support at all. Not to mention, at the max level, damage and fire rate also has been buffed a bit and the cost also has been made cheaper. It is safe to say Sniper is buff. Moving on to Paintballer. At level 0, the range is decreased from 11 to 7 and the fire rate is decreased from 2 seconds to 1.6 seconds. At level 1, the lead detection is replaced with hidden detection and the cost is increased from 100 to 200. Damage is increased from 2 to 3 damage and the range is decreased from 13 to 8 range and fire rate still remains the same as 1.6 seconds. At level 2, the cost is increased from 500 to 675. Damage is increased from 3 to 6 damage. Range still remains the same as 8 and fire rate also is the same as 1.6 seconds. The explosion range is decreased from 3 to 2.5. At level 3, the cost is increased from 700 to 1000. Damage still remains the same as 6 damage and the range is decreased from 15 to 8 only. And the fire rate is decreased from 1.5 seconds to 0.9 seconds. Explosion range still remains the same as 2.5. At level 4, the cost is decreased from 2500 to only 2250 and damage is increased from 5 to 9 damage and the range is decreased from 15 to 9 range and fire rate is decreased from 1 seconds to 0.75 seconds. Explosion range is also decreased from 4 to 3. At level 5, the cost is increased from 3500 to 4000 and damage is increased from 10 to 15 damage. The range is decreased from 15 to 10. Fire rate is decreased from 1 seconds to 0.6 seconds. Explosion range is decreased from 5 to only 3.5. Overall, Paintballer has been buffed a bit in terms of damage. The only biggest buff here was its fire rate, especially at the max level where it almost shoots twice as fast than it was before. Although the range and explosion range was heavily nerfed, and not to mention all of the upgrade cost has been made a bit more expensive as well, except for level 4. Even though Paintballer now shoots very fast at max level and the damage also has been increased, but it wasn't good as before. So it is safe to say Paintballer is nerfed. Moving on to Ace Pilot. At level 0, the cost is decreased from 550 to only 450 and fire rate is decreased from 0.18 seconds to only 0.15 seconds. Damage is decreased from 2 to only 1 damage. At level 1, the cost is increased from 150 to 225. At level 3, the cost is increased from 2000 to 2200. At level 4, the damage is decreased from 8 to 7 damage and fire rate is increased from 1 seconds to 1.2 seconds and bomb fire rate is decreased from 2.75 seconds to 1.75 seconds. Cost is increased from 3600 to 4000. At level 5, the bomb fire rate is increased from 0.65 seconds to 0.8 seconds and the bomb damage is decreased from 30 to 25 damage and the cost is increased from 9750 to 10,000. Overall, Ace Pilot didn't receive any major buff at all. Only its placement cost has been made a bit cheaper. Other than that, all of the levels has been nerfed a lot, especially at level 0 where the damage now only deals 1 damage, making it struggle in earlier wave and also struggle in hardcore. So, it is safe to say Ace Pilot is nerfed. Thanks for watching and see you.